Learn how to get started with the Azure Machine Learning Service and how the Azure Machine Learning extension for Visual Studio Code works in this episode of Azure Tips and Tricks. Here we are in Visual Studio Code. We are going to install the Azure Machine Learning extension that lets us work with the Azure Machine Learning Service. Let's go to Extensions and now search for Azure Machine Learning. There it is. Let's click Install and there it goes. This can take a while. And it is done. Now I need to reload Visual Studio Code before we can use the extension. And that's it. The extension also installed the Azure extension and also the Python extension for Visual Studio Code, which you can see here. And by the way, in order to use Azure Machine Learning with Visual Studio Code, you need to install Python on your local machine, which I've already done. Now let's go to the Azure extension. I've already signed in, but you might be prompted to do so. Once we have created an Azure Machine Learning Service workspace, we can manage it from here. Let's create one. First, I'll type in a name. And now I select my subscription. And finally, my existing resource group. And that's it. It is now creating a workspace and I'll skip to when it's done. Here we are in the Azure portal. I'm searching for machine learning and select the Machine Learning Service workspaces. And there they are. There's only one, the one that we've just created. This is the workspace and it is empty at the moment. Let's get started by using Azure Notebooks. This immediately prompts me to clone the Getting Started notebooks, which I'll do. And there we go. Now I'll open the first notebook file. And here it is. This is an Azure Notebook, which is the Azure version of a Jupyter notebook. This contains scripts that can be executed and serves as a collaboration environment for data scientists. I'll go ahead and click Cell Run All to execute all of the code in all of the cells. The notebook contains code that creates a machine learning experiment in the Azure Machine Learning workspace. It does that with Python scripts. And this is the actual experiment. This experiment attempts to estimate the value of pi. And everything that you see here, you can also do from Visual Studio Code. And that's it. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Here we can now refresh and then look at the experiment. This is what the notebook created. Let's take a look at it. It ran a bunch of times and came up with 3.136 for the estimate of pi. Let's go back. And from here, go to the next notebook. This notebook deploys the experiment as a model to a web service. Again, it does it with all Python commands, which you can also do from Visual Studio Code. Let's again go to Cell and Run All. And before it is finished, I'll delete the last cell, which deletes the web service to clean it up. Alright, that's it. Back to Visual Studio Code. Let's take a look at deployments. And here is the web service. Let's take a look at it. Here it is. This is the URL that we can use to call the service. We can call this just like any other web service. Let me show you. Here I've called the web service from Postman, which is an application that can generate HTTP requests. I simply send a JSON payload containing the radius to the web service and get an estimated area back. Azure Machine Learning Service is really powerful. And you can use it from Visual Studio Code with the Azure Machine Learning extension. Go and check it out.